Hey, happy Monday evening, guys. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with Exemplify Health Center, an affiliate of the Wellness Way in Yorkville, Illinois. Hope you guys had a great Monday. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I actually just got back from Orlando, Florida yesterday. Had a full day in the office, a very, very full day in the office. And yes, it is about 7:30, a little bit afterwards, and I'm just finishing up. And I'm ready to spend some time with all of you wonderful people. I'm going to talk to you about an awesome topic about estrogen dominance. You probably have heard that before. If you haven't, keep watching, because this is going to explain a lot of things that are going on, and particularly to you ladies. And I'm going to go over today the who, the what, and the why behind it. And I'm going to give you a different perspective regarding this, because the perspective that a lot of other doctors, natural health providers, hormone specialists, all of those things is, let's just say I'm going to give you a different perspective, all right? So had a great weekend, had the opportunity to speak at the Wellness Way seminar down in Orlando, Florida. It was an absolute blast. I love speaking, and had the opportunity to speak to literally like hundreds and hundreds of doctors, actually there was medical doctors there. There was nurses there, nurses practitioners, other chiropractors, other people that are studying in the academy, becoming Wellness Way practitioners to be able to work under specific doctors. So it was just an absolute wonderful time being able to meet so many people. And guys, this is the picture that we took. These are all of the doctors and the future practitioners, current practitioners that were there at the beautiful, the Omni Hotel at Champions Gate, just south of Orlando, Florida. So I actually was not in this picture. I completely forgot about it. I was actually at the hotel gym working out. I just forgot about it. But yes, even when I'm away, I still work out because it's just a priority of mine. And priorities, are my day is not dictated. My day is dictated by my priorities. Okay, it's not dictated by anything else. So if it's a priority, it gets done no matter what. So even when I'm away, speaking and attending a seminar. So guys, do me a favor. If you were at the seminar and you are watching right now, do me a favor. I want you to put a green puzzle piece in the comments, okay? So if you are watching right now, you happen to be down in Orlando, Florida at that seminar, go ahead and put a green puzzle piece, just like you see in the description, in the comments below. If you happen to watch, or actually in attendance when I spoke and heard me talk about adrenal downregulation and inflammation, the role that inflammation plays a role with energy and things like that, go ahead and put two green puzzle pieces so that I know I can give you extra special attention, all right? So guys, it was really, really awesome. I got an opportunity. So many people came up to me afterwards. They said, hey, I want to let you know I watch your videos. I always was looking at name badges because I recognized the name. I didn't necessarily had ever met the person before, but it was really cool to be able to finally put a name with a face and be able to meet so many wonderful people. I'm always humbled and honored that you guys would actually want to watch me. And the other thing is a lot of people said, I never ever comment, but I watch every single one of your videos. And so I always say, hey, if you guys are watching, just please drop a comment and just, let us know. Because, doing these live videos very late at night, I usually don't get home on Mondays until about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. So it ends up being a late night. So I just have to prove to my wife that it's worth it to do this. So I always appreciate your comments, your likes, your shares, everything that you do. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful group of doctors who are revolutionizing healthcare as we know it. And guys, I know that a lot of people reach out to me, say, I want to work with you. I can only handle so many people. So guys, if you ever want to work with another doctor with the same perspective as mine, just make sure you go to thewellnessway.com and be able to find a doctor in your area, or request that a doctor do like a remote consult in order to be able to help you. I know that we've had a lot of people that have reached out from Canada that say, please come and speak. And I promise you, I will do my best just once they remove some of the restrictions. And I even talked to Dr. Patrick Flynn about this, And it would be probably a great time to have myself and Dr. Patrick Flynn come up and do some kind of hormone seminar or something like that. I think you guys would really enjoy it. And so we'll just keep our ears to the ground and see when some of these restrictions and things like that are actually lifted, because Lord knows I am not getting anything put into my body to be able to enter into Canada. All right. So guys, let's get into it, okay? We talk about this right here, estrogen dominance, the who, the what, and the why. A lot of women especially do have the symptoms of estrogen dominance. So if you're watching right now and you don't know if you have it or not, let's go over some of the symptoms in regards to estrogen dominance, okay? So there's a lot of different symptoms. There's a lot of things that we got to unpack for today, and hopefully at the end this makes a lot of sense. And it also makes a lot of sense to know why you should be doing something about it. Guys, one of the things that I'm going to talk about with some of the symptoms is the one at the very bottom really is the consequence of having problems with estrogen metabolism especially. But here are some of the symptoms, and guys, these are just absolutely fascinating. Anxiety and irritability, okay? This can be a symptom of estrogen dominance. Guys, what is so amazing is that you can actually see on specific testing a woman's estrogen metabolism. Remember, estrogen just describes a bunch of different hormones that are in the estrogen family. You got estrone, estriol, estradiol, 4-hydroxy, 2-hydroxy. So you have all of these, and then 2-methyl, 4-methyl. So you have literally 9 different estrogens. But what's really interesting is that you will see when a woman especially has problems with anxiety or extreme irritability, a lot of it can be related to the conversion of some of these estrogens. This is actually why, and I'll talk about this later, why things like certain herbs that you think are for depression, like St. John's wort, are actually really for depression. They actually help with specific hormone conversion, okay? So anxiety, irritability, migraine headaches, guys, especially if you are of the childbearing age and you're having a menstrual cycle, why you're going to have a migraine headache just a couple of days prior to your menstrual cycle. I'm going to talk about that because something absolutely fascinating. Hypothyroidism is actually can be a symptom, not the only symptom of estrogen dominance, but it's also not the only symptom of hypothyroidism. There's a reason why you can have hypothyroidism with estrogen dominance, and the reason why, if you get too many estrogens, your body will actually bind up those estrogens with thyroid binding globulin, so you'll have symptoms of hypothyroidism. It won't show up on a test, but if you're testing it right, you will actually see that you have very little free T4, free T3. You also will have things like breast tenderness. The reason why is that estrogens are very anabolic as far as growing tissue. You'll be on an emotional roller coaster, crave chocolate. This is why a woman's best friend is not diamonds, it's actually chocolate. You can have joint pain. You can have weight gain around the hips, and the reason why is that estrogens actually signal where fat is deposited. This is why men and women typically put fat on in different areas. And yes, men, if you are putting weight on, in your hips, on your butt, in your thighs, in your breasts, versus around the abdomen, you have a problem also with some estrogen issues. You can have low libido, and then things that are related to signaling for tissue growth is uterine fibroids. You can have issues with the breasts as well, and then also finally cancer. Guys, I will tell you this, is that you have seen an explosion of hormone-related cancers with uterine cancer and breast cancer. And the thing is no one's talking about what are we doing from an environmental standpoint that could be causing estrogen dominance, either exposure to estrogens within our environment, but also so many people are having problems with other things that is then limiting the ability of the body to be able to clear these estrogens as well. And I always will say this, is that breast cancer is not a genetic issue. Let me say that again, it is not a genetic issue. And the reason why is that the genetics will change in response to the environment. You can have a genetic predisposition to anything, but as soon as you start having issues or start having some damage and inflammation in these areas I'm going to talk about, you're going to have a very bad day, whether you have a genetic tendency to it or not. So these are the symptoms, and if you have those symptoms, guys, I want you to continue to pay attention, because I'm going to start looking at all of these different links and hopefully connecting the dots for you so that you know at the end exactly what you need to do as well. Now, somebody had actually asked me by this, and I said I'll answer this for you in our live, but guys, this has to do with symptoms of estrogen dominance. Now, I will say this, because I'm going to go over this in just a second, is that estrogen dominance doesn't necessarily mean that you have too much estrogen. I'll show you some of the scenarios that you would have the symptoms of estrogen dominance without having quote unquote too much estrogens. But this is actually absolutely amazing. They talk about, in the journal of PubMed, they talked about what's known as cortical spreading depression and estrogen. Okay, so here's what they say. Cortical spreading depression is an electrophysiological phenomenon characterized by a wave of excitation followed by inhibition. The aura phase that precedes migraine headaches in about 20 to 30% of migraineurs shares overlapping characteristics with cortical spreading depression. So, and they say, although the relationship between cortical spreading depression and migraine without aura is not completely understood, what they're actually talking about, guys, is they're talking about this whole idea with migraines and depression prior to a woman's menstrual cycle. So really what's interesting is that when you look at migraine headaches, and even when you're looking at problems with depression, and even when you see changes with your mood prior to starting your menstrual cycle, this can be a problem with specific types of estrogens. So there's different reasons why people can have depression, there's no doubt about it, but for many people, many women I should say, it can be hormonal related, as can migraine headaches. And there's really a couple of different reasons why someone can get migraine headaches. It could be inflammatory, it can be due to food allergies, it can be due to the relationship between the spine and the nerve system, and it can be also related to estrogen dominance as well. So guys, pay attention to this, because there are so many people who are going to doctors with migraine headaches, and they are getting completely mismanaged because they basically just have them on what is known as migraine medication that dulls the symptoms, dulls the pain, or they're going to put them on an antidepressant. And guys, yeah, that may work temporarily. In fact, there's a lot of research out there regarding antidepressants that actually says that they really only work for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then the body adapts to it and returns you back to depression, only to leave you scared to death to be able to wean yourself off of the depression medication, because you will actually sink further into depression because the body downregulates the production of serotonin within the gastrointestinal system and within the brainstem. So we're putting people on these medications only to make them lifelong customers with no exit strategy, if you can imagine that. But yes, looking at this, there's a relationship between depression and your estrogens, and I'll talk about this at the very end. So here's some common scenarios that can actually take place, okay? So anyone who is suffering with some of the symptoms of estrogen dominance, these are likely really the 4 different scenarios that you're going to be in. Number 1, you can have high estradiol and low progesterone. So pay attention to this, okay? High estradiol. Well, Dr. Nate, could my body be making accidentally too much estradiol? The answer is it's not doing it accidentally. So chances are, if you're suffering with high estradiol and low progesterone and you're of the cycling age, chances are it's really with this. It is, you have low progesterone, and the number 1 cause of low progesterone is going to be due to actually having too much mental stress, putting you into a high cortisol state that's putting you into fight or flight. In order to make cortisol, it will steal it from progesterone, which puts you in a low progesterone state. And then also you can have high estradiol. And where you're getting those extra estradiol, guys, is actually coming from your fat cells, which means that if you have excessive body fat, then what happens is that fat cells will then produce estradiol, okay? Now, if you are putting on body fat and you don't know why you can't lose it, then there's a problem with the liver. So if you're having problems with body fat or fat metabolism, then you're also probably having problems with estrogen metabolism. You're probably also having a problem with bile acid production and metabolism, which is why you see women who lose their gallbladder all have problems with estrogen dominance. They all lose their gallbladder because they're producing gallstones, and they also have a problem actually losing fat, and they're also, most of them are over 40 years of age because they've accumulated so much collateral damage from their lifestyle. Then you also may have normal estradiol and low progesterone. So remember this, you may go ahead, they may do a blood test, look at your estradiol levels, and they'll say, well, I don't know why you have estrogen dominance. It's normal, but they didn't actually measure your progesterone because estrogen and progesterone balance out the effects of one another. So you might have normal estradiol, but low progesterone, and you're having symptoms of estrogen dominance. You can also have hot flashes, and you look at your hormone profile, and it looks completely normal, but you might be low in progesterone. Again, one of the biggest reasons why you might be low in progesterone is because of cortisol production and because you're constantly having too much stressors, particularly mental stress. Now, you may also have high estradiol, but then have normal progesterone. So this may be a case where you might not have a lot of stress, but you may also be enjoying things that are putting on too much body fat, okay? And then finally, you may actually have a test, and this is actually, if I would say everything is normal, and you go to the doctor, they run progesterone, they run your estradiol, they're doing estriol, and they're looking at it, and they're like, everything looks pretty normal. I have no idea what's going on. Well, I'm going to show you a test that will actually look at this much, much deeper, especially when your doctor is saying everything looks normal. This test right here is called a Dutch test. Dried urine total comprehensive hormone test. And basically, all of these little fan gauges and things like that is looking at the whole sex hormone pathways and how they're getting processed and excreted by the body. Guys, this is a fascinating test. My opinion is that women should get this test at least one time every single year in order to see how their body is metabolizing hormones. We will run this all the time on women who have had breast cancer, or women who have uterine fibroids, or women with PCOS, or women who are having problems with estrogen dominance, because not only does it measure hormones, it also measures the whole adrenal response as well, and it also measures antioxidant activity. It's also measuring melatonin levels and things like that. This is just 1 page out of 8. So this woman was actually having symptoms of estrogen dominance and was only about 42 years of age. So when you look at all of these are your 3 estrogens. You got estrone, estradiol, and then you got something known as estriol, which is actually the weakest form of estrogen. And the body actually will convert that into estriol in order to protect you from the damaging effects of estradiol. Remember, it's very, very stimulatory. It's tissue growing, which will include anything with a hormone receptor like the breast and the uterus, okay? So if you look at her, you can actually see her very, very high levels of estradiol. Because that was so high, her body was converting it into the weakest form known as estriol. This is a classic example of someone who actually has estrogen dominance, okay? So you can see that she has a problem with high amounts of estradiol, and you ask the question, well, why does she actually have so much? There's a lot of different things that were going on with her, but one of her problems was actually happening in the liver. So when you think about these hormones need to be removed, especially when you're having a menstrual cycle every single month. Where are those hormones going? They have to be converted and removed, and the organ responsible for removing it is your liver. So if you look at her liver, you can see that she was having a heck of a time actually trying to convert it and remove it, also known as detoxification, and the pathway, phase 2 pathway, is known as methylation in order to be removed and excreted by the liver. Those hormones are fat soluble. You need to make them water soluble, and then you need to be able to remove them through the liver. Then you need to be able to then squirt them through your bile acids and then into your gastrointestinal system to be removed by your GI system. There's also, guys, some reasons why you could be estrogen dominant because you have issues happening within the large intestine as well. Her problem was primarily due to the fact that she could not methylate these hormones and remove them from her body, which is why things like detoxification is so important. And what we do with detoxification is a lot different than doing a liver cleanse or a colon cleanse or anything like that. I cringe when people say that that's truly what detox is. I also cringe at people who say you don't need to because you have a liver and you have kidneys and you don't need to do anything extra. Well, guys, the number one reason why a woman's going to have problems with her liver is because the liver is either not feeding the pathways or the liver has inflammation. And some of the biggest things that can cause issues with liver inflammation are going to be like the overconsumption of fructose, high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils. There's specific toxins that will completely wreck the pathways within the liver, like glyphosate, for example. So yes, these things can actually happen. And yes, you can also have issues with kidney damage as well. You start getting kidney inflammation, you're going to get the production of inflammation is always going to lead to scarring and scar tissue formation, which is always going to cause a decrease in specific function. So then you don't have the ability to be able to remove these things from the body, okay? So what are the major players when it comes into considering how you can actually start to overcome estrogen dominance, okay? Then one of the first things is going to be body fat, okay? Now, this might not be a very popular opinion, but we should be saying it. And what I'm saying when I say this, is that in our society today, is that we started to normalize being obese. And it's not to say that we should be shaming people who are obese, but we should also be saying, hey, we need to make sure that we are not doing the things that are causing too much body fat. And the reason why is because body fat produces estradiol. This is true in women. This is also true in men. So guys, we should never ever be glorifying an unhealthy habit. We should never be glorifying alcohol use and getting drunk. We don't glorify smoking. We don't glorify negative behaviors, but for some reason, we're glorifying unhealthy habits that are actually leading to obesity. And the more that we glorify that, the more we're going to be spending in healthcare. In which, in the United States, if someone actually is considered obese, they will spend per year an average of about $1,800 extra when it comes to their healthcare expenses year over year. So we do have to consider body fat, okay? There is a range that is too low. There's also a range that is going to be too high. Typically for men, I say men, as far as from a health perspective, not from an aesthetic perspective, meaning how good you look based off who says you're supposed to look good or how good you're supposed to look, compared to a magazine model. But men typically from a healthy perspective, they'll need a body fat percentage of about 15 to 25%. And ladies, I would actually say you really shouldn't be trying to get under 22%, and 22 to 35% is actually a pretty good range, especially when it comes to your fertility hormones. So body fat plays a role in it. Number two, in fact, if you have too little body fat, you can actually become very estradiol deficient, especially after menopause. So number two, you have to look at your liver. So how is your liver able to actually metabolize and excrete these hormones every single day? Which is why if you're having a problem with the liver, you just can't get rid of these estradiols. You have estrogen dominance, but then you also have these hormones that are staying within the body. And if they're staying within the body, what they're doing is they'll continue to signal specific tissues to grow. And that is one of the things that can lead, especially with hormones, but then also having a lowered immune response, can lead to things like breast cancer and things like that. The third thing that you have to look at as far as your estrogen dominance is your adrenals and your stress levels, okay? Now, ladies, I want you to pay really close attention to your adrenals, especially if you are postmenopausal. So let's say beyond 52 years of age or so, then what happens is that where you're getting your estradiol, yes, you can get a little bit from the uterus, not very much, but you can also, where you're getting most of your estradiol, it's actually coming from the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands do in fact actually produce your androgens, and the other place that you're going to be getting is actually getting it from fat cells, okay? This is why after menopause, you really have to pay attention to your adrenals quite a bit, because this is where you are getting your supply of your estrogens and then also your testosterone as well, okay? The fourth place, and no one ever talks about this, is you have to be looking at your large intestine. Guys, there is an enzyme in the large intestine. It's called beta-glucuronidase, okay? And the thing with beta-glucuronidase is it can be too high and it can actually be too low. When people have a tremendous amount of gastrointestinal inflammation, beta-glucuronidase tends to be very high. And so if this is high, then one of the things that you will see is that this enzyme will actually cleave off bound estrogens in the bile and be reabsorbed back into circulation, which means we've seen people have tremendous symptoms of estrogen dominance even in their early 30s, and we've seen beta-glucuronidase absolutely sky high, which means that even if their liver is healthy and they're detoxing these hormones every single month, is that it's just putting it back into recirculation all over again. So you also have to see, looking at the large intestine, how you're actually removing your estrogens and to make sure you're not putting them back into circulation. The other thing too that you got to pay attention to, and this can be one of the reasons why a lot of people get into this position in the first place, is the whole idea behind toxicity and consuming things that actually can mimic estradiol. Excuse me. So if you look at, atrazine, for example, atrazine is something that they put on grass, and it's a weed killer. So you may have this put on when you get your lawn sprayed twice a year. This is huge when it comes to golf courses as well. And this has actually been linked to increased estradiol. Not only that, but if you guys look at parabens, you'll see methylparaben, propylparaben, butylparaben. And what these are antimicrobials that they'll put in a lot of skincare products. This is why I always want to actually see things, purchase things that are considered quote unquote paraben free. And so these are going to be in a lot of makeups, lotions, it could be in shampoos. They're actually trying to get these out of a lot of things kind of quietly. But these can actually, once they enter the body, they can mimic estradiol. So you don't want to constantly be exposing yourself to extra hormones. So it's not healthy for you. It's going to put more stress on the liver. And the other thing is too, is just like we tell men, why would you want to take like testosterone exogenously through some kind of cream or injection? Because you're going to expose yourself to more testosterone. If you have the machinery and the machinery works, why not work on getting your machinery to work versus doing it the lazy way by taking exogenous hormones, okay? So what can you do, guys? What can you do? The first thing that I will tell you to do is please make sure that you get tested, okay? Work with a Wellness Way doctor, guys. If you are from the Yorkville area, reach out to us and we can help you start in that process. But what should you get tested? Everyone is different. I will say this because there's many different ways and many different tests that can leave clues that you have estrogen dominance. But if you just want to see, let's see if this is going on, I would say that the best test is actually the Dutch test, okay? The stool test is actually where you would look for elevations of beta-glucuronidase, but chances are that that enzyme's not going to be elevated for no reason. You're going to probably have multiple food allergies. You probably have, some small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. You probably have, increased yeast. So there's a lot of other things that are going on with that. So most people, when we're testing that, do have some issues when it comes to their gastrointestinal system. Another thing to test too is food allergies, especially when you're talking about inflammatory triggers as well. What are some foods, though, that can help you with your estrogen metabolism, even without getting tested? Omega-3 fatty acids can help you with your estrogen metabolism quite a bit. It will actually help to convert into some of these 4-hydroxy into 2-hydroxy and kind of shunt them away from the 4-hydroxy, which actually causes a lot of DNA damage as well. Resveratrol can be very, very good. Guys, where you see resveratrol is actually like in wine, grapes, things like that. And then eating a lot of cruciferous vegetables, and the reason why is because they contain sulfur. So those veggies that smell are actually really good for you because they do encourage healthy conversion of estrogens down those pathways that allow the liver to be able to clear them out, okay? Now, what about supplements? You guys are going to want to write this down. Please don't write this down because not everyone needs all of these. You may need none of them. The only way that we know this is actually by doing the proper testing. But guys, things like Japanese knotweed does a wonderful job for certain people when it comes to their estrogen metabolism. The reason why is because it's one of the best herbs that contains resveratrol. California poppy can do a wonderful job. That has nothing to do with hormones, because if you are in a normal estradiol but a low progesterone state, and one of the things that you can do is help to manage your stress better, and California poppy does a wonderful job of blocking the stress response at the adrenal glands. Chaste tree does a wonderful job of helping to elevate progesterone levels. I3C helps with hormone conversion. St. John's wort actually does a wonderful job of helping your initial estradiol conversion go from estradiol into estriol. And you can see that on a Dutch test. Passion flower is actually what is known as an aromatase inhibitor. You'll notice that a lot of doctors, when someone has breast cancer, is they'll put a woman, even if she's got normal estradiol levels, they'll put them on an aromatase inhibitor that inhibits the conversion of testosterone into estradiol. That's really, really interesting, because what you should be doing, instead of putting a woman who's had breast cancer on an aromatase inhibitor, because that will cause some problems in and of itself, not only put a woman in early menopause, but one of the things is you can look at the conversion of those different things so that you don't have to be on an aromatase inhibitor. So passion flower, though, can inhibit the aromatization of testosterone into estrogen, and in fact this typically will help men as well, because a lot of men are having their testosterone converted into estradiol, and yes, they are having a lot of symptoms of having estrogen excess. This is when they start to grow breasts. This is when they start to have problems with the swollen prostate. This is when they become a lot more emotional, a lot more agreeable, and they lose that edge especially. And that's why passion flower can do a wonderful job for men especially, but we always are testing before we're utilizing that. And then finally, working on detoxification with a Wellness Way doctor who can actually design it at the right time, and also utilizing the right types of things to help with hormone conversion and to help with removal of those hormones as well. Number 4, things that you can do from a nutritional and diet standpoint is, number 1, avoid grains, okay? Yes, we are talking about wheat. Yes, we're talking about soy. Yes, we are talking about, barley. Yes, we are talking about oats. Guys, the reason why is that grains in and of itself cause a lot of issues with increased body fat deposition. But the other thing too is that a lot of these things heavily use what's known as glyphosate, and glyphosate in and of itself will cause damage to the liver enzymes. And not only that, excuse me, it will cause problems with the small intestine, as it basically just pokes holes in the small intestine and causes an increase in small intestinal permeability. Make sure too that it's organic, so that you're not getting that high pesticide load. There are certain pesticides, guys, that will cause a conversion of specific hormones. There's no doubt about it. And then also make sure that you're always doing grass-fed, so that you know that when you're doing these, if you're going organic on fruits and veggies, if you're going grass-fed, free range, think of that, then you're going to decrease your pesticide load. And I always say, why increase the load on the liver when you're doing this, when the liver in most people is already overburdened, okay? So some common questions because I know that people, I haven't been reading the questions, but someone's going to ask this question: should I take exogenous hormones? Should I take exogenous hormones? Because one of the treatments of people who are having issues with estrogen dominance or hot flashes and things like that is that a lot of times what they'll do is they'll give a woman progesterone. So, progesterone cream, progesterone patch. Guys, you can run into some problems because basically what you're doing, if you're in a low progesterone and you're in a high estradiol type of environment, then just elevating that progesterone up to a certain amount is basically hiding the very toxic effects of what that estradiol is actually doing to you. So I've seen women who have been taking exogenous hormones like progesterone, and it basically took the symptoms away, but then they, a couple years later, they have a giant uterine fibroid. So your body, when it's having these symptoms, is having a symptom for a reason. So you don't want to be dumping more hormones into your body. What you want to do is get to the reason why this is happening. And in fact, I've had women who have been on exogenous hormones. I remember a patient who was taking progesterone, was taking estradiol, and then was also taking testosterone all together. And we did a Dutch test and looked at this, and they were all going down some very, very bad pathways. And I had to look at her and I had to say, even though these hormones might be making you feel good, you are in a position to get breast cancer. Who says so? The test says so, and the research says so, okay? So what about X supplements, okay? And I just saw a comment come across, someone asked about a supplement, okay? Well, what about this supplement? What about that supplement? Guys, there are so many people who are basically taking 10,000 supplements and they have no idea what it's for, and it's only just because Dr. So-and-so said to do it. Guys, if you're taking a boatload of supplements and you're still sick, then it's not that those supplements don't work, it's just that you don't necessarily need them. See, the only thing that a supplement will do is return you back to sufficiency. A supplement is not going to boost your immune system, okay? A supplement is not going to fix all of your problems. And in fact, we have a lot of people in the office that do take a lot of supplements, and you know what I tell them? Just get off of all of them and just take what I tell you to take. The reason why is because we've done the testing, and for a lot of you, you're just wasting your money, okay? The only way to know what to take, the only reason why we give a supplement is to help return to sufficiency. Once sufficiency has then been reached, then we say, let's see if we can get it through food. Now, some people will say, I don't want to get it through food because it's too hard. And then I say, great, here's a supplement, and then go ahead and you can pay me at the front desk. So liver glandular, yes, I mean, it can help your hormones, no doubt about it. Like will feed like, will help heal like. But you guys can also eat liver. No one wants to eat liver, so they're willing to take a liver glandular. So guys, the only way to know about X supplement is to really test it and then have someone who knows how to interpret it and knows which one is going to be best for you at the right time. So there are certain things I will not give to a person for maybe 3 or 4 months because at that moment the body will not utilize it the way that it's actually supposed to, okay? So hopefully, guys, that makes sense. And if you found this enjoyable, or if you learned something from it, or you know someone who could benefit from this, please share this. I always appreciate you sharing our videos. And guys, if you're watching this and if you're from the Chicagoland area, tomorrow is the night. It's our Approach to Inflammation Talk, April 12th at 6:15 p.m. until about 7:30. And the reason why is how you help with hormones. The reason why we do this is how you help with thyroid issues, weight loss issues, cancer, things like this, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune conditions, things like that. The first thing you always have to do is you have to handle inflammation first. The reason why is nothing will heal unless you remove the inflammatory triggers, and then after that, you can repair and you can start to rebuild. It's kind of like the scab that never leaves your knee after a year, and you can't figure out why that scab hasn't healed, but every day you keep falling on it because you keep tripping on the same buckle in the sidewalk. So it's not a problem with healing. It's not a genetic issue. It's that you haven't removed that trigger that's causing the tissue damage. So at that point, maybe we should talk about walking a different way so that you don't trip on the buckle in the sidewalk and keep injuring yourself. Guys, most of the problems that you're dealing with are not an illness. It's an injury. And the symptoms you have of that injury is the body trying to adapt to help you live longer. And once you understand that perspective, you will start seeing hormones from a whole different way of thinking. You will start seeing weight loss from a whole different way of thinking. You will start looking at pain from a whole new way of thinking. You will start looking at your energy from a different way of thinking. You will start looking at everything. So when people say, how on earth did you come up with that? It's because within the Wellness Way, we look at your problems from a different perspective. And I'm going to tell you something, it tends to work out really well. Because we understand that the body is intelligent, that the body is always fighting to adapt. It just doesn't need any help. It really, first and foremost, just needs no interference. And by golly, we are interfering all the time, and we don't even know that we are. So Approach to Inflammation, Tuesday night, 6:15. If you're from the Chicagoland area, probably you got to register by tonight. Go up to the top of the page and register on our Eventbrite link. We'll see you guys then. And if you guys always have a topic of discussion that you want to hear, just drop a comment below. I'll make sure that I look at it, guys. I try to read all of the comments, but right now I actually have someone who manages all of our social media. So just so you know, I can't respond to every comment like what happened a couple of days ago. I just can't respond to all of them. It doesn't mean that I don't read them, but from a time perspective, it's impossible because I'm in full-time practice. I have 3 kids who are in sports. I have a family. I also have, hobbies, and I like to work out and do those things. So I also have to have a life as well. But I still appreciate every single one of you. But we're hiring people in order to be able to handle the traffic so that we're helping people as much as possible. So guys, be well. I hope you have a great Monday night. It is time for me to head home, see my beautiful family, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. Be well.